Hello, everyone. This is Scott Nelson from the Austrian Economics Center in Vienna, Austria. And as part of our ongoing State of the Country series in our Free Market Roadshow online, I'm pleased to be joined here by Simon Sarevski, who is reporting to us from Skopje, Macedonia. Simon is a bachelor's in financial management. He is a coordinator at Students for Liberty, as you can tell by the t-shirt that he's presently wearing. And he's also a project manager at a classical liberal think tank in Macedonia called Libertania, Center for Contemporary Politics. And finally, he was also an intern at the Austrian Economics Center last year, in fact. So welcome, Simon.
Hi, Scott. And first of all, I would like to say the internship at the Austrian Economics Center is a great opportunity for anyone interested in Austrian economics and classical liberal in ideas in general. So do apply for that. It's a great opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you for saying so, Simon. I appreciate it. So, yes, so as part of, I mentioned at the beginning, as part of our State of the Country series, we've been asking several people, both our partners as well as some of our former interns from all over the world, what the situation looks like in regards to COVID-19 in their country. And so Macedonia, I have absolutely no overview of. And so I was curious if you could just give us an idea of what does the situation look like in Macedonia right now?
Okay, so it first started back in late February with the first confirmed case, and I would say people were not scared at all because it was another virus and stuff like that. However, only 2 weeks later we had like the first, let's say, outbreak from people coming from Italy, and on the 10th of March, I think, we closed down the schools for 2 weeks, and we are still living in those 2 weeks. After
Right.
2 months, and there was a ban on gatherings with 1,000 people or more, no audiences at sports events. Pretty classical approach, more or less, but every government did in the first, let's say, weeks of March. However, soon in a small city, not Skopje, in a small city, there was another outbreak, and a crisis was soon declared, and we on the 18th of March we had the first state of emergency in our 3 decade of independence.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something. And imagine we had only 35 confirmed cases of corona at that time. And I know this is a 2 million population country, it's a small country, but still only 35 cases brought us the state of emergency. However, the curfew happened at the end of March, and the curfew was somewhat okay, let's say, because it disallowed people leaving the homes from 9 p.m. to 6 a.m. more or less. So that was the, let's say, okay curfew. However, after that we followed with measures of protecting the elderly, disallowing the 67-plus-year-olds from leaving the house. They had only 2 hours between 2 o'clock and between 10 a.m. and 12 a.m. to leave the house. So more or less that's how everything progressed. We had at some point bigger lockdown that was starting from 7 p.m., then from 4 p.m. The worst part of it all were 2 weekends or three, I cannot recall, to be honest, but we could not leave for the whole weekend from late Friday to early Monday because of the state of emergency. And the worst of it all was the weekend when we had Easter, because it was more than 3 days, including the Monday, which was a holiday, and we had more than 72 hours staying at home. So more or less that's how the situation progressed throughout the from early March, let's say late February up till now.
Okay. And so now we're in mid-May though. Is everything still more or less the same? I mean, you're all still in lockdown right now, or has the government started sort of relaxing the lockdown measures?
See, the lockdown is still in place, but it's relaxed compared to what was earlier, because earlier it was until 4 p.m. The lockdown started. Now we start the lockdown at 7 p.m. Uh, but even though you don't see measures from the government, being harsh, you can see that how the population views the whole situation has, is a bit different, and people are more relaxed now. They go to, social gatherings. They go to, we have a local mountain like you have in Vienna, the Kallenberg. We have Bodno,
Hmm.
and I can say that people nowadays go even with their children, and the youngest of them all. So it's more or less fine with the people, but the lockdown is still in place.
Okay, but so you're allowed to get together though in social gatherings. Like, is there a sort of limit on the number of people who are allowed to congregate in a particular spot where do you still have to maintain that kind of like here it's a 1 meter distance from other people? Or what's it like there? I mean, do you still have restaurants and that sort of thing open?
We I don't know whether I don't think we opened this week. However, we are in talks of opening the restaurants, and again, you cannot you have to have a distance of, let's say, 1 meter between tables, and if you cannot have such a distance, some tables are meant, not to have people on them. So more or less, yes. um, uh, Again, we have still the social distancing, as you say, 1 meter or so, but I would say they're not they're neither enforced that much, nor people care. For example, if you go in buses, people still sit together if it is crowded,
Right.
and
Okay.
no one is doing the policing, let's say.
Okay. When you're in the bus and that sort of thing, do you have to wear the mask?
No, no, but it is suggested to. So you can enter. However, in stores, by definition, by law, you are not allowed to enter stores without a mask.
Okay.
However, depending on the store, depending on the region of the country, urban to rural areas, it differs. But the law of the land is, not to enter. I would say, for example, the most strict of all the shops were the, how would you say, the pharmacies,
Mhm.
and they did not allow more than one person inside a pharmacy, in a, let's say, smaller pharmacy at one time. So you could see lines, and you could not enter no matter what without a mask.
Okay, fair enough. Gotcha. And so how in general has the population been reacting to these measures? I mean, I know that, for example, you mentioned earlier that they've begun to sort of relax a little bit, congregate more, in social gatherings and that sort of thing. But was there any sort of massive, let's say, resistance to the curfews initially, or did most Macedonians just kind of accept, okay, this is what we're doing and go along with it?
See, here's the thing. If you look at the first week of when we had the first confirmed case, people were at the same time afraid, but at the same time were like, it's not a big deal. Afterwards, in the, let's say, the second week of the crisis, when it all started, people were extremely afraid, and they really agreed with what the government, said, to do the curfews, the social distancing, shutting down stores. Uh, that was very well accepted because people were very afraid. However, I would say this is, a very bad uh, thing to say. It differs a lot, because again, it depends whether it was a rural or urban area. At the same time, the old people, you would think that they would have been the most afraid of all. However, the older they get, the more resistant to the curfews they were. and they did not follow. I would say that they did not follow the curfew. They didn't follow curfew the most of any other group, because a classic saying would be something along the lines, I lived for 70 years, this little silly virus is not gonna kill me, along those lines. So they still played chess in the parks, they still went to the markets, and they even I remember, this is a personal anecdote, but I went to a bank at like 8:30 or 9 a.m. and they were allowed to leave the house at 10 a.m. and they were allowed to enter the banks by the banks at 9 a.m. So I would say that even though people were in general afraid, especially the urban areas, you can find some other people that were not afraid at all. And if I like, I remember this is not a 10-day-old story. We in a smaller city, they had some sort of a religious holiday of the city or something along those lines, and people were not allowed to gather. Only the I don't the Orthodox cardinals. I cannot remember the correct word of the Orthodox Church higher rankings. However, they were allowed to go around the city. Only 3 of them, and all of a sudden everybody left their homes and followed the cardinals, as I'm saying the incorrect word. And there was a gathering of 1,000 people. This is like less than 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden people were saying that everything we were trying to flatten the curve, in a sense, all of a sudden you would find more and more people getting new confirmed cases with the virus. So in a sense, yes, people were afraid, but nowadays not so much, and you can see in the social gatherings of people.
Okay. And so how about the younger people, like yourself, for example? How have you been affected by the crisis? I assume you're doing home office for Libertania. What have you been up to these days?
Well, I would say for me that sucks a lot, because I have like 2 sisters with 4 nieces and nephews, and I could not see them for like 40 days or so, because my sisters were extremely afraid, even though I even got tested for corona, because I was sick and I was not allowed to go to the doctors, because I was only mildly coughing, but I had like different symptoms, and yeah, I had to take the test. So that, I would say, that's very bad. Your contact with the family is kind of skewed somewhat. In early spring, usually we make barbecues with friends at my place, and now we cannot do that. So I would say I'm pissed. The whole social life was very different. At the same time, we were forbid to go to the local mountain, let's say local hill. So more or less that was the sucky part of the whole quarantine. And I would say that the worst thing of it all was the no leaving the house until 7 p.m. or 9 p.m. I don't think that measure accomplished anything serious. At the same time, uh, uh, not that it infringed on our liberties. I'm not taking that stance. It's just the quality of life was lowered very, very much.
All right. Well, fair enough. Well, thank you very much, Simon, for that overview of the situation in Macedonia. I hope that you stay safe and you get to head out soon.
Yeah. Thank you, Scott.
So that was Simon Sarevski in Skopje, Macedonia. Simon's a bachelor's in financial management, coordinator at Students for Liberty, and currently a project manager at a classical liberal think tank in Macedonia called Libertania, Center for Contemporary Politics. And Simon was also an intern at the Austrian Economics Center last year. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more of this content, then please come visit us at fmrs.online. Thank you.